Krsna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasati.
Hare Krishna, welcome. Bhagavad-gita. We are in the second chapter, contents of the Gita summarized. We will have many verses describing in different ways, from different angles, the nature of the soul. So I will read text 24. Achejoyam adhayoyam akledyo shoshya evacha nitya sarvagatas dharnur achaloyang sanatanaha. This individual soul is unbreakable and insoluble, and can be neither burned nor dried. He is everlasting, present everywhere, unchangeable, immovable, and eternally the same. Purport. All these qualifications of the atomic soul definitely prove that the individual soul is eternally the atomic particle of the spirit whole, and he remains the same atom eternally without change. The theory of monism is very difficult to apply in this case, because the individual soul is never expected to become one homogeneously. After liberation from material contamination, the atomic soul may prefer to remain as a spiritual spark in the effulgent rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the intelligent soul enters into the spiritual planets to associate with the Personality of Godhead. So we see here that if we accept Bhagavad-gita as a source of knowledge, as a bona fide description of spiritual reality, then we can't twist the meaning from what Krishna is saying into something else. This happens when you have an impersonalistic, monistic attitude, when you view spiritual life from a monistic point of view. Then these words we have here, they don't make sense. So you have to turn them around. You have to try to logic them into being something different. We don't want to do that. We want to accept Krishna's words, because otherwise why would we read the Bhagavad-gita? We want to read the Bhagavad-gita to find what's in the Bhagavad-gita. We don't want to read the Bhagavad-gita to put into it what we would like to be inside the Bhagavad-gita. That's why Prabhupada calls it Bhagavad-gita as it is, not Bhagavad-gita as you like. So the soul is unbreakable and insoluble. So if you can't break the soul, how did you break it off from the original Brahman to start with? The soul is not a piece of bread that you can break off the original piece. It is eternal. It will have to eternally be individual. Everything else, well, you can think and believe anything you like, but you can't claim that it is based on the scriptural truth unless it corresponds to the scriptural truth. And also in a practical sense, we're persons. You can't break me into half. When you have a child, it seems that this child is an extension of your own body. But then that person comes out, grows up, and is separate from you. You cannot claim that you're my son and you're my daughter. You have to be exactly like me. We can immediately see they're not exactly like me. They have different tastes, different ideas, different desires. We have to respect that. And it says here, after liberation, the atomic soul may prefer to remain as a spiritual spark in the effulgent rays of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That is an option. But the intelligent souls enter into the spiritual planets to associate with the Personality of Godhead. That is a higher form of existence, of spiritual existence. The word sarvagata, all pervading, is significant because there is no doubt that living entities are all over God's creation. They live on the land, in the water, in the air, within the earth, and even within fire. The belief that they are sterilized in fire is not acceptable, because it is clearly stated here that the soul cannot be burned by fire. Therefore, there is no doubt that there are living entities also in the sun planet with suitable bodies to live there. If the sun globe is uninhabited, then the word sarvagata, living everywhere, becomes meaningless. Yes. So we have this debate sometimes, is there other intelligent life in the universe? And then we have scientific research looking for planets that look like our planet, because we need water, of course, and I'm at a loss for the English word here. Carbon-based life form is what we believe are able to sustain intelligent life, because that is what we are familiar with here. But of course, from the creational point of view, you can create any kind of bodies. What we are familiar with here is earth and water, yes. But there are different planets, there are different layers of existence. So spirit souls can have fiery body, can have airy body, can have subtle ethereal bodies. We may not see it, we may not be able to find it through scientific means. But if we try to accept the words of the Bhagavad-gita, if the soul is everywhere, he's not just there in the form that we are familiar with. There are other forms. There are, of course, the lower life forms, even on this planet. Animals, they have consciousness, but they may not have the same intellectual capacity that human beings have. And then we have plants that display the symptoms of life. They come into being, they grow, they produce seeds and flowers and so many things, fruits. They stay for some time, they dwindle and they go away. Those are the symptoms of life in a material body. And they have consciousness too, in their own limited way. So this we can understand a little bit more about the soul, and then we can intelligently apply that knowledge in our own lives, so that we don't become sidetracked by monistic philosophies, also so that we don't become overly absorbed in materialistic life. Because if we know that we are the spirit souls, then we want to know what is the best position for the soul to take. I will read another verse. Text 25. Avyaktoyam achintyoyam avikaryoyam uchyate tasmad evang viditveinang nanusho chitum arhasi. It is said that the soul is invisible, inconceivable and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. Purport. As described previously, the magnitude of the soul is so small for our material calculation that it cannot be seen even by the most powerful microscope. Therefore, he is invisible. As far as the soul's existence is concerned, no one can establish his existence experimentally beyond the proof of Shruti or Vedic wisdom. We have to accept this truth, because there is no other source of understanding the existence of the soul, although it is a fact by perception. Yes. We can see that we are alive. We can see that when we meet another person, there is a person there. We can interact with them. We cannot precisely, analyze in a physical sense where that soul is situated. They started to do experiments on dead bodies some 100 years back in order to advance the science of medicine. They would take a person who was dead and they would cut up the body, and they would find the blood vessels and they would find the lungs and all the organs, and then they could study them. But no matter how finely you chop up a body, you will never be able to find the soul, because first of all, if you chop up the body, the soul is not going to stay around. And even if it did, it's so small that you can't see it. It's impossible to find. So therefore, if we want knowledge about the soul, we have to accept that knowledge from somebody who has that knowledge. And who better to give us that knowledge than Krsna himself, which he does here personally in the Bhagavad-gita and also throughout the Vedic scriptures, directly and indirectly. There are many things we have to accept solely on grounds of superior authority. No one can deny the existence of his father based upon the authority of his mother. There is no source of understanding the identity of the father except by the authority of the mother. Similarly, there is no source of understanding the soul except by studying the Vedas. In other words, the soul is inconceivable by human experimental knowledge. Yes, if we are born, our mother is right there. The father may or may not be there. But the mother surely knows who is the father. So if we ask her, she can tell us, this is your father. Of course, this is generally a moot point because we grow up, we're in the family, we just assume that this is the mother, this is the father. But when we become a little older, we become a little inquisitive, then that's the source of knowledge. And we may protest and say, if today we have DNA tests, we have so many things. Yes, but you do not find the father by the DNA test. You confirm the father by the DNA test, because the DNA test cannot assume out of, how many do we have now? 4 or 5 billion people. It's not a perfect instrument like that. So if your mother says, this is your father, generally you have to believe her. And in the same way, if the Veda says, this is the nature of the soul, we can't really argue that point. Fortunately for us, it's not something we really need to argue, because when we pick up this knowledge and we pick up the process for realization, we can put it into practice and we can realize it gradually in that way. But we cannot make some scientific tests. I mean, in the atom, apparently science can find indication of the atoms, can find traces of atoms and molecules. You can't exactly serve up an atom on a plate and point to it. It's far too small, and it doesn't really work that way. But through some interference from the symptoms and from traces, we are able to make those kind of experiments. Obviously not me personally. You can hear that I don't know in detail how this works. The fact is, though, nobody has seen an atom, and mostly nobody has seen the soul. But we always see the symptoms of the soul. It is very clear. Is this body dead or alive? Is there a soul present, or is the soul not present? And when we want to know more, we turn to the Bhagavad-gita. In other words, the soul is inconceivable by human experimental knowledge. The soul is consciousness and conscious. That is also the statement of the Vedas, and we have to accept that. Unlike the bodily changes, there is no change in the soul. As eternally unchangeable, the soul remains atomic in comparison to the infinite Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul is infinite, and the atomic soul is infinitesimal. Therefore, the infinitesimal soul, being unchangeable, can never become equal to the infinite soul or the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This concept is repeated in the Vedas in different ways, just to confirm the stability of the conception of the soul. Repetition of something is necessary in order that we understand the matter thoroughly without error. So this is the basis for our spiritual life. We understand the nature of the soul. Invisible, inconceivable, and immutable. Knowing this, you should not grieve for the body. So we have to establish this fact: the body is different from the soul, and the soul is like this. You can't see it. You can't also change it. And from there on, we can continue in our spiritual life, and our understanding and our realization can grow. And the very least we can, the least point of realization we have to take from this is, yes, if that is the nature of the soul, what do I do with that? How does it apply to my life? And therefore we will continue to read the Bhagavad-gita, and we will learn more and more. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalang